Quarterbacks, Zach. Tyrod Taylor, I thought he was fine. I know Steve Serby of the New York Post and Glenn got into it jokingly, like it was good humored after the game about, oh my God, Tyrod Taylor can still run, and Glenn was like, what do you mean he can still run? And Serby was like, well, he's 36, and Glenn's like, you can't run when you're 36, but still, I thought this was your typical Tyrod Taylor game. 19 of 33, 172 yards, 44 touchdowns. Had 2 touchdowns total, 1 passing, the gorgeous one to A.D. Mitchell, the 52-yard strike, and then a really nice run as well for the score to tie the game at 24-24. His scamper on the final drive that actually set up Nick Folk's game winner, really impressive there, the 14-yarder around the right sideline. So I think you're seeing some pretty decent things from Tyrod Taylor right now, Zach. At least what you expect. Again, you don't think this guy's a star. He's not a starting quarterback in the NFL. You don't want to see him for 18 weeks. But he is the perfect backup quarterback, in my opinion, when he's on the field.
Yeah. I mean, I think about the bomb he had to A.D. Mitchell, and we'll get into that when we get into A.D. for sure. But I only point to that to say, like, Justin Fields is not making that throw. He's not even attempting that throw. And that's why I couldn't help but think, like, obviously this is a complicated, like, what if, because you never know if Tyrod's going to stay healthy. But I can't help but wonder if they win a couple more games if Tyrod is the starter sooner in the season, just because the whole point of right now, obviously, is, as we've said over and over, is to evaluate. And you're able to evaluate because Tyrod Taylor is both willing and able to make most of the throws. He's able to run the offense more efficiently than – maybe not efficient isn't the right word because I don't know if he's the most efficient quarterback. But, he's going to compete. He's going to throw. He's not going to be afraid to throw it. Like, the guy, like, he got, like, hit pretty hard the play before that bomb. And in Breece Hall was like, I was kind of worried we weren't going to be able to get the next play off because it involved, like, 2 different motions. And so I'm like, we need to get the line before, like, the 20-second mark. And so I tell the guys just to line up. And they wound up not doing the motion. The next thing you know, he's bombing it to A.D. Mitchell. And so – he's the exact kind of quarterback you need kind of where the Jets are at right now. As we talked about, like, establishing a culture, like, this guy is going to compete his ass off no matter what. Like I said, he was getting banged up. He's older. He scrambled for a touchdown. He kind of willed the offense in a lot of ways. A group that, like, you have a couple receivers who don't even know the plays necessarily because they were just acquired a few weeks ago. You have an offensive line who has some really good moments, but also was, like, had some really ill-timed false starts. And he's just a leader that everybody looks to. Everybody really loves him. And, we can get into what the future is at backup quarterback and with him and all that stuff. But I'm impressed with him just in terms of, like, his ability to just be a professional quarterback. And that's something they've been missing this year. And maybe they're not going to win a lot of games. But I think having him at quarterback, you feel a lot better about the development of the guys around him than you do with, like, Fields, obviously.
Well, what's fascinating, Zach, is the Jets are going to draft a quarterback this year. And I think it might have been Tony Vegas that I saw on Twitter throw this one out, my boy TV. It was the picture that either you or I posted of the stands that were just a ghost town yesterday. It was crazy. It was miserable weather, a bad team. Falcon fans aren't traveling because they stink too. Like, no one was going to be there. But I think it was TV that said something like, oh, yeah, the Jets are definitely drafting a quarterback this offseason because it makes sense. Like, that's how you energize it. You need a quarterback. And I don't know if that's going to be Simpson, Mendoza, Moore if he comes out, or somebody else that we're not really talking about yet, like that emerges from the college football playoffs. I don't know, but I definitely think the Jets are going to end up drafting someone. However, they're going to pair that person with a veteran. And when we were going into this one, I was fascinated at the idea of Kirk Cousins being that veteran mentor for whatever quarterback the Jets draft in the first round by trading up or by drafting him organically or however things fall in place in April. I didn't know if it would actually happen because of the background with Cousins and the Jets and some of the back and forth where Cousins was coming here, the documentary that he put out where he basically said the Jets paid him more money and he was still going to the Vikings. I know that rubbed Mike McCagnon and ownership way the wrong way, so I don't even know if it ever would have happened, but he was a very intriguing option. And maybe that's because I still had Minnesota Vikings quarterback Kirk Cousins in my head. And last year with the Atlanta Falcons, when he looked so bad, it was just because he was coming off of that Achilles tear, and now he's back to being Kirk Cousins again, or at the very minimum, still a really serviceable quarterback. I have no feeling whatsoever or thought whatsoever that Kirk Cousins is a serviceable quarterback in the NFL. And I know the statistics weren't that bad, Zach, 21 to 33, 234 yards and a touchdown. But if they weren't giving the ball to Bijan Robinson and letting Bijan Robinson go crazy, it felt like the Falcons were basically just 3 plays away from punting. Like, that's how it worked. If it wasn't Bijan Robinson doing amazing things, the offense was completely and totally shot. They had nothing without Drake London throwing the ball. Kirk Cousins can't move anymore. His arm looks dead, and the inaccuracies are crazy. So I came away from this one saying, dear God, do not let me sit through any more Kirk Cousins football. And please, Jets, do not sign Kirk Cousins in the offseason. I like the idea of Marcus Mariota better. I like the idea of Gardner Minshew better. I also, and I'm curious your take on this, am warming up to the idea more than I ever thought I would that Tyrod Taylor with a rookie quarterback makes some sense. And, you know, when the Jets signed Justin Fields, Zach, I texted a general manager just to kind of get an idea of what Fields was capable of, what he thought of Fields from his evaluation. And he straight up told me, Connor, the best quarterback on that team is still Tyrod Taylor. And he said that throughout OTAs. He said that throughout minicamp. He said that when I checked in training camp and after the preseason. And even after the opener against the Pittsburgh Steelers, he said, just wait, I'm telling you, Tyrod Taylor is still the best quarterback on the Jets roster. And again, he's limited. He's not an elite player. He's not going to flip games in your favor. But what he does well, and he showed he can still be a serviceable option out there under center. So I genuinely do not hate the idea of having Tyrod Taylor, if he wants to come back, and a rookie with the Jets next year. I genuinely do like that.
I mean, Tyrod, as you've talked about in the past, he's kind of like the perfect bridge veteran quarterback because he's like good enough to be your starter at the beginning of the season if you want to do that. But he's also not so good that he's going to, you know, blow the top off to where, like, if you bench him for the rookie in week 4, everybody's going to lose their mind. Like, he's like, and he's not going to cause a ruckus. He's not going to demand a trade or a release. So
guys love him.
Guys love him, and he's a good mentor for a young guy. So I'd be very open to it. Like you said, there are some interesting guys like a Marcus Mariota, who I think is also similarly like a really good teammate. There's a few others that are going to hit free agency that are notable. But, you know, if you're drafting like a Mendoza or a Simpson or a Dante Moore, whoever's available, or if they trade up, like I do think Tyrod's a good complementary guy to that, and so I'm open to it. By the way, you mentioned Fields, and we haven't talked about it since Fields talked to the media for the first time. Joe Caporoso actually called this the second like reluctance game because Fields kind of basically said like that they like talked to him about being like a wildcat quarterback option, which I think he could survive in the NFL a lot longer if he's willing to just be like a Taysom Hill type the rest of the way. He did not make it sound like he's willing to do that. He said he doesn't like it because he goes in and he risks like hamstring injuries or whatever, and he dealt with that in Pittsburgh, and he's not so sure he wants to do that. And you know,
he's
get,
getting paid a lot of money.
Idea of it. Yeah, I get the idea of it, but like, don't say that out loud. And you know, I don't think that's a great look. They didn't use him as a wildcat. I don't know if I imagine there wasn't any refusal or anything, but that was surprising to me to hear that, to be honest.
I'm not unsurprised by it because I know how Justin Fields views himself as I'm a quarterback.
True.
And
That's
he doesn't
fair.
think he should have been, he doesn't think he should have been benched. He thinks he was unfairly benched, like all that stuff internally. Like, you know, that he thinks he should still be this team starter. Not his fault. You know, we got to do what I know that. Like, again, he takes blame, but still doesn't think he should have lost his job. So it's not surprising. At the same time, and throwing him out there to run quarterback sneaks and know he's going to take a beating when he's already been pretty bruised and battered this year. Like, I get why he's reluctant to do it, but you're still getting paid a lot of money from this team. You know what I mean? Like that when my boss tells me, like when Amara tells me she wants me to write a column, I can't turn around and be like, yeah, I don't feel like doing that today. You know what I mean? Like
my hand might get sore and I don't want to, typing.
It's a different situation there for him. But you know, the one thing I will say, and this real quick before we move on, the one underlying note with Tyrod Taylor is that, as you said, Zach, he's so loved across the NFL, and everybody across the NFL views him as that perfect bridge quarterback. One of the reasons why he signed with the Jets last year was because he didn't want to be that stopgap veteran mentor. He actually signed with the Jets in part because he wanted to play with Aaron Rodgers. I'm not saying Aaron Rodgers was this lightning rod attracting free agents to come to the Jets, but Tyrod looked at this as like, yeah, I'll go be the backup behind a veteran. I don't have to worry about teaching. I don't have to worry about being this veteran guy. Like, he's the starter. I'm the backup. Like, he actually enjoyed the fact he was behind a solidified starting quarterback. Now, if he's going to have a chance to play, maybe I don't know. But after what he did with the Giants, with Daniel Jones, and where they're going to draft somebody, like it was kind of a different world. But I think he wanted. I know he didn't necessarily love the idea of being like that veteran to the rookie. So we'll see. Maybe it changed a little bit. Maybe he likes the Jets and likes the coaching staff and he wants to stay. And certainly, like I said, I think he's playing himself into a position where you want to have him back next year. I think so, at least.
Yeah, I'm curious to see if the Jets are interested in bringing him back. It seems like Aaron Glenn likes him quite a bit. So there's worse things you can have than Tyrod Taylor in your room at the end of the day.